Why does a substance that poisons your liver, scrambles your balance, and shuts down the higher functions of your brain feel, for a few hours, like one of the best things that has ever happened to you? Why do humans get drunk at all? And why, out of every animal on Earth, are we the ones who built entire civilizations around the feeling? Here's the story you have almost certainly been told. Alcohol is a modern vice, a mistake, a recreational accident that our ancestors stumbled into once agriculture gave them grain to spare, and everything since has been one long slide into hangovers, bar fights, and bad decisions we could have avoided if only we had known better. In this version, drunkenness is a bug in the human software, a glitch we have never quite patched out. It sounds obvious. It sounds responsible. And it is almost completely wrong. Because getting drunk is not a modern invention, and it is not an accident. Your ability to process alcohol is written directly into your genetic code, and it was written there long before anyone planted a single seed of barley. Roughly 10 million years ago, a common ancestor of humans, chimpanzees, and gorillas picked up a mutation in a gene called ADH4. That mutation made one specific enzyme in the gut around 40 times more efficient at breaking down ethanol. 40 times. Your body did not learn to tolerate alcohol at a tavern. It has been preparing for that drink since before your species existed. So where does ethanol come from in nature, and why would a body ever evolve to handle it? The answer is fruit. When ripe fruit falls to the forest floor and begins to rot, wild yeasts move in and ferment its sugars into alcohol. To an ape foraging across a rainforest, the smell of ethanol drifting on the air was not a temptation. It was information. It was a signal broadcasting exactly where the ripest, most calorie-dense, most sugar-rich food could be found. And the animal that could follow that scent and safely digest what it found ate better than the animal that could not. This is what biologist Robert Dudley called the drunken monkey hypothesis. The idea is that our attraction to alcohol is not a modern corruption at all, but an ancient inheritance from a time when the smell and taste of ethanol reliably led our ancestors to the best possible meal. The pull you feel is millions of years old. And here is the uncomfortable part. The very same mutation that let your ancestors chase down rotting fruit is the reason a glass of wine hits you the way it does today. The reward and the risk come from the exact same place. You cannot have one without the other. Now push forward to the moment humans stopped merely finding alcohol and started making it. At a site called Göbekli Tepe in modern Turkey, archaeologists found massive stone vessels, some holding well over 100 liters, bearing chemical residues consistent with fermented grain. This site is around 11,000 years old. That is older than writing, older than the wheel, and crucially, it may be older than farming itself, which raises a genuinely radical possibility that researchers now take seriously. What if humans did not settle down to grow bread and then discover beer by accident? What if they settled down to make beer and got bread as the side effect? And this pattern is not one weird outlier in one weird place. It is everywhere. The Chinese were fermenting rice, honey, and fruit into alcohol 9,000 years ago. Ancient Egyptians paid their pyramid laborers in daily rations of beer and treated it as sacred medicine. Across the Andes, across Mesopotamia, across sub-Saharan Africa, wildly separated cultures who never met and never traded independently arrived at the same conclusion, that fermented drink belonged at the very center of feasting, of ritual, of worship, of community. When dozens of unconnected societies all invent the same behavior on their own, that behavior is not a mistake. That behavior is doing something. Here's the reframe. We tend to assume the whole point of getting drunk is the individual buzz, the private pleasure. But look at how humans have actually used alcohol for 11,000 years, and a very different function appears. Alcohol lowers your guard. It quiets the part of your brain that keeps you cautious, calculating, and closed off from strangers. And that, for a social ape trying to build trust with people it is not related to, was extraordinarily useful. Sharing a drink was a way of saying, I will lower my defenses if you lower yours. It was social technology for a species that had to learn to cooperate at scale, which means the thing we call a vice may have been one of the tools that made large human societies possible in the first place. The strangers who could sit, drink, and bond together were the strangers who could form the villages, the alliances, and eventually the cities that everyone else got left out of. So the next time you feel that warm loosening after the first drink, understand what you are actually feeling. You are feeling 10 million years of evolution, a scent trail through a vanished rainforest, and the same chemical handshake that turned frightened strangers into the first communities on Earth. If you found that shift in perspective worth having, subscribe to The First People, Because we do this every week, taking the parts of being human you thought were simple and showing you how deep they really run. And tell me down in the comments, what ordinary human habit do you want us to trace back to the beginning next? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.